Am I just cursed to never have a decently sunny day in order to do a good recording? I have like half the lamps in the apartment set up like strategically behind my camera right now just to try and get some decent light in here. Anyway, hey guys, welcome back to another Twisted vlog. I made my weekly trip to the comic book store, and this time I picked up a new series called Spread because I can never actually get all the books in a series. I need to read the first issue of literally everything I see. This is another instance where, ooh, pretty cover art kind of ruled the day here because I've been seeing the single issues of this sitting around for a while, and I was so far behind I knew I had to just wait for the trade paperback. And yeah, this has a pretty gruesome art style. I'm actually just trying to find like a good picture here. Here's a good one. Wow, that is the Spread. Let's try and not get a shine on it here. Believe it or not, I've actually read this one before I start recording this time, so I can actually talk about it. Yeah, this is just another example of a post-apocalyptic world where this organism that has just been called the Spread has taken over. This is about the people living in an area called the quarantine zone. I'm assuming that means that there is a safe zone somewhere outside of the quarantine zone. Anyway, the people inside the quarantine zone are basically on their own. They've set up their own little society. There's scavengers, there's little settlements. Outside the settlements, the people who go and look for supplies are constantly tailed by the Spread. It'll kill basically anything in its path. Like, it starts off as little globs of like flesh and teeth. Basically, they're kind of like amorphous blob, but if they kill a human host and they find a human host, they will inhabit the corpse, and then that person basically just becomes a shambling zombie. They're kind of awkward looking, and you can clearly tell that they're dead most of the time. The main character that you see on the cover of the comic book, you don't end up ever finding out his real name. They just refer to him as No, because that's basically a lot of what he says is just no repeatedly. He's a man of very little words. One day he's out scavenging and he comes across a dying woman holding a baby. He makes like a token attempt to save the baby at first because, hey, small child, I'll just take it back to the settlement. But when the chips are down, he's not going to risk his life for a child that isn't his. So when the Spread attacks him with the baby, he's pretty much resigned that the kid's gonna die, but then the kid cries or drools or something, and he discovers that this baby's drool can basically like kill the Spread, or it hurts it at least. So yeah, he's basically traveling around with this baby who is probably the only hope for beating the Spread. I really need the second book to this now, guys. Like, you have no idea. I need to know what happens next because it leaves off on such a freaking cliffhanger. Anybody who likes, again, horror, post-apocalyptic, blah, 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 we've all seen that before, but this is a very interesting take on it. You might find this one to be a pretty enjoyable read. Another book that I picked up this week is actually a series I've been reading for a little while at this point. It's called Paper Girls. This is the one that I just picked up recently. You can see it's issue 11, so it's kind of a good ways into the series. For anybody who's interested in this series, I think there is a trade of this at this point, so it'll be like the first 5 issues all in one if you don't want to pick up the singles. Anybody who likes Stranger Things will probably enjoy reading this because it is very much 80s nostalgia monster flick sort of thing going on in this one. I'm not gonna tell you too much about it because it's one of those things where you really got to read it to kind of get what's going on, and I'm afraid I'll give away like a big spoiler, but Paper Girls is a very good series and I highly recommend it for anybody who wants it. Just thought I'd mention it since I happened to pick up another issue of that this week. I actually managed to sit down and watch the Outcast TV show this week. I had mentioned in a previous vlog that I wanted to do that quite a while ago, but I finally actually got to sit down and watch it. I watched the entire first season. It's not very long. It's only like 10 episodes or something like that, so it's not very it's not a very long series to watch. I only had the first trade paperback to compare to the entire first season. The first episode is almost page for page the exact same as the first issue of the trade paperback. A lot of lines were pulled straight out of the comic, which I rather enjoyed. The casting's good. A lot of the characters look a lot like what they look like in the comic books. There's a couple exceptions, but it's not necessarily for the worst that they don't look exactly like their comic counterparts, because they're decent actors and I really enjoyed seeing them. Obviously, some plot points were extended out a little bit. I noticed plot points that came up in the first issue of the comic would actually continue on to later episodes. But not having read the other trades, I'm not sure exactly how much of those plot points continue, and if they had just kind of rearranged things, which I think is probably what they did. The effects for the show actually weren't bad. They had a lot of creative license to do what they wanted in terms of like showing the possession and like the smoke goo stuff that comes out when somebody, like the demon, is leaving somebody. The comic book had a bit more of a minimalistic approach to how they portrayed everything, so the runners of the TV show could kind of play with how it looked. It ended up kind of being a cross between this smoky tar looking stuff that would like cling to the ceiling and bubble and disappear, and I thought that was really neat. Did I end up liking the TV show? Yeah, I totally enjoyed the TV show. I'll watch the second season when it comes out. Obviously, I like horror movies. I like supernatural demon possessions, what have you. And I really enjoyed Outcast. It was really well done. The plot is really good. I want to see what happens in the next season because, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to see what happens in the next season. So I'll be watching that probably next fall when it comes out. So yeah, for anybody who enjoyed the comics, you're probably going to enjoy the TV show as well. It is very, very similar. They added a few things, but they didn't mess with anything super major. I had originally intended on going to the theater and watching Rings before I started recording this. Unfortunately, I ended up working a bunch of overtime again and I didn't get the chance to go this week. So I'm going to see if I can't go either tonight or tomorrow, probably gonna end up being tomorrow, and I will record myself after going to the movie and I'll tell you what I think. It may end up being just another like little crummy iPhone video that I end up tacking onto the end of this video. But I will go and I will check that out and I will let you know what I think, because I'm very interested to see how Samara has come into the digital age, because yeah, she was using old school technology before, wasn't she? She was on like a VHS tape. I remember owning the first movie on VHS, which I know probably ages me a wee bit. Yeah, I'm really worried with it being a sequel so many years after the first two movies that it's just gonna be really, really awful. Normally I'll at least glance at like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or something and check out the score just to kind of see what I'm in for. Sometimes I don't, because especially if I'm looking forward to a horror movie, I just can't handle somebody telling me that it sucks before I see it. I kind of want to see it and decide for myself. Hey guys, what's up? I just got out of seeing the Rings here at the theater. I went solo today, and I'll post a picture on Instagram, but I was literally the only person in the theater, which usually bodes well for a movie. I left the theater to a bit of a snowstorm, a bit of a snow squall that the area is having, so I'm gonna have to keep this short and sweet. This movie ended up being incredibly, like, meh. It wasn't scary, really. Like, it had a couple scary moments, but they were so few and far between. Samara features surprisingly little in a movie that is titled The Rings. I mean, she's the star of the show, and you really don't see much of her at all. You don't need to actually, like, see, oh my gosh, Samara's standing right there in the middle of the shot, but, like, add in some, like, creepy hints in the background, why don't you? Like, don't just go, like, 10-15 minutes at a time without a single scary thing at all happening, really. Like, at least have her, like, make creepy stuff happen in the background, like keep things interesting. I found that long portions of this movie would go by without much scary going on, and at points, like, until towards the end, I was actually kind of bored. At this point, I feel like Samara's motives have kind of flip-flopped back and forth a little bit. Like, they went deeper into her background again. Like, you know, from the last movies that she was an adopted little girl, and right from the beginning, there was some weird stuff going on. Like, it's pretty safe to say she was evil from the moment she was born. She was pretty much an antichrist. They kind of took that a little bit more literally this time around. For a good chunk of the time, you're supposed to feel sorry for her. You're supposed to feel like you're trying to rescue her. When you know from the past two movies that shit doesn't work. She will play you straight up every time, and I don't know why people keep falling for it. You almost think for a minute that, oh man, she just wants to be set free, but no. And boy, do these characters get played like a freaking fiddle. And they started off this movie with an interesting thing, like people were voluntarily watching the Samara film. Like, they made a digital copy, and in order to survive past the 7 days, you had to have another person watch the copy that you made, and then basically Samara would follow that person. So it's a never-ending chain. And people were actually volunteering for this nonsense. There are thrill seekers, I mean, but damn. Come on, guys. So yeah, moral of the story. If somebody says they have a haunted videotape that will kill you in 7 days, don't volunteer for that nonsense. What's my final verdict for this movie? Well, you've probably guessed it, but it's not that great. I wouldn't recommend anybody run out to the theaters and watch it. I mean, if it ends up on Netflix or you end up streaming it, go ahead and watch it. But you're not missing anything from the Ring franchise that's super exciting if you miss out on this. It's more of the same thing, only with less of the stuff you actually want to see. So take from that what you will. I'm gonna leave it at that for now, because if I don't get going soon, I'm gonna get snowed into this damn parking lot. So don't forget to click the links in the description below to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and check out my other vlogs and Let's Plays here on Twisted Tales Studio. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!